Ken?
Yeah. All right, Peter, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Well, the time is 7:08 p.m. on Wednesday, February 14th, 2024. And I'd like to call this Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting to order. We'll start with a land acknowledgement. The town of Aurora acknowledges that the Anishinaabe lands on which we live and work are the traditional and treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island, as well as many other nations whose presence here continues to this day. As the closest First Nation community to Aurora, we recognize the special relationship the Chippewas have with the lands and waters of this territory. They are the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and as a municipality, we join them in these responsibilities. We further acknowledge that Aurora is part of the treaty lands of the Mississaugas and Chippewas, recognized through Treaty Number 13, as well as the Williams Treaties of 1923. A shared understanding of how the rich cultural heritage that has existed for centuries and how our collective past brought us to where we are today will help us walk together into a better future. So we'll follow that with the approval of the agenda. So may I have a motion to approve the agenda as circulated by Legislative Services? All right, Allison moves, and a seconder, Joanne. Any questions or comments on the agenda for tonight? Okay, then I'll call the vote to carry the agenda. All in favor? And any opposed? All right, that carries. We will go into declarations of pecuniary interest. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? All right, there. So we will go to the receipt of the minutes. May I have a motion to receive the meeting minutes of January 10th, 2024? Haley, and seconded by Allison. Any questions or comments on the minutes? All right, if not, I'll call a vote to receive them. All in favor? And it's like none opposed, so that carries as well. We have no delegations this evening, so we can move on to the matters for consideration, starting with item 7.1, which is a memorandum from the Accessibility Advisor regarding the site plan application for 100 Goulding Avenue. That's application SP 2023-01, submission number 2. And may I have a mover and seconder to put this item on the floor for discussion? And Haley moves and Allison seconds. Okay. Greg, would you like to speak to the item?
Will do. Perfect. All right. So as was mentioned, this is SP 2023-01. This is our second submission. So as part of the 8 pages in the package, as we typically do, we will just go through the content of the documents, review the plan, and then we'll proceed to discuss the comments, and then we'll open up the floor for committee to add any additional comments before submitting. So on the screen here, so on our first page, just in that second section there, are all the original comments that were submitted back on April 17th for the first submission, and then the responses from the applicant on the right-hand side there. So again, the washroom on the main level is served as a barrier-free path of travel. They also have additional universal washrooms on the 2nd and 3rd floor. The elevator will be addressed through conformity to the building code, which is one of the comments that we'll touch on today. Tactile indicators they did mention as part on the landscape plan, which is exterior. That is the comments there. The emergency evacuation chairs, it will not be provided. That's how they have responded. Automatic door openers to all doors, it will be addressed. Exterior path of travel, there are over the 1500 millimeters. So they mentioned the 3 meters in the front and the 2 meters on the sides, which is great. Rest seating along the side, and they did comment seating will be provided. So those are kind of the comments that were originally submitted, and then the responses at that point. So this is a plan that we have already seen as a committee, and these are the comments that we originally submitted. So as we proceed, as a refresher, this is, so I'm gonna remove all these. So this is the plan itself. Square unit here. So we do have 3 sections to this facility. The top one in light purple color. The side here in yellow is 3 stories. And then the bottom in the same purple. So it's kind of a C or a U shape, depending on how you look at it. The top and the bottom there in the light purple shaded is 2 stories. And the yellow orange color there is 3 stories. So they did have some comments here about restaurants kind of periodically. That doesn't necessarily mean there will be. That's potential that there will be a restaurant in that location. Could be other things at that point. As we clean it up a little bit, again, we see the plan, but we can see our main entrance to the main building on the right-hand side here, followed with a path and a curb ramp in. We do have 4 accessible spaces, 2 type A's, 2 type B's, right by that entrance. And we have the additional type B spot off to the side with another curb ramp there. We do have a curb ramp down at the bottom with path of travel. So this is all from Goulding Avenue. So we can have pedestrian traffic come into the building to the main 3-story area. And then on the right bottom and the top, almost identical, we do have the 5 additional units on the top, on the north, and then on the south as well. Multiple EV charging stations around the back and the front as well, as common parking spaces. As we look into the site plan further, we do see, again, they've been consistent. So we do have that unit. So this is the ground floor with the stairs going up on every one of these 5 units. And then we have the same on the bottom. So north and south are identical. Then we have the building A as defined here, which we do have 4 units on the main level. This is where the main entrance is, with the vestibule, the lobby, the elevator to go up to the 2nd and 3rd floors, the barrier-free washroom, along with the staircase as well. So this is the ground level view. As we move to the 2nd story, and this would be the 2nd story of those 5 units, which are individual units. And then we do have in the main hallway, the elevator that goes to the 2nd floor, which we do have 2 regular washrooms as well as 2 barrier-free washrooms on the same level, side by side. So there's 4 washrooms total, along with a hallway that goes into individual office units as they subdivide it on the 2nd floor. And then we have the 3rd floor, which again, same 4 washrooms on this level, as well as the elevator onto the 3rd floor, and then a hallway up and down the space to subdivide the office spaces. On the other 2 units, north and south, this is the rooftop, as it's only 2 stories. This is the look of the facility. So again, this is the east side. So the front, the 3-story portion where we do have the main entrance into those facilities and all the separate units as well. second and third stories. And then this would be the north and equivalently the south side. So a 2-story unit, depending on what gets put in there. And then on the back side, we have the loading docks for those units. And finally, I'll zoom out a little. This is just some of the details. I don't typically provide that detail, but since they specifically commented on it, I did include it. So we do have our permanent signs and the print on the floor, which is great. And then we also have the tactile indicators and then the curb ramp design as well. So we do have what the space is going to look like for the parking with the access aisle there, the curb ramp, the tactile indicators onto the main sidewalk. So that is the plan in a nutshell. What I'm going to do is come back to this view as we go through the comments. So additionally, the 3 comments I had listed here is the first question is more of a question rather than a comment. I'm wanting them to really clarify how persons with disabilities can access those second levels on units 1 through 5 on the south side, as well as 10 through 14, which is the north side. It was mentioned in the comments that this will be addressed through conformity of the building code. However, I am asking for an explanation as to how individuals are supposed to get to that second floor if they have a disability. Secondly, they did comment on the tactile indicators. It is still not apparent inside the building on the staircases. So I am clarifying that they are visible as the site details. However, they're only on the curb ramps. The site plan, again, as we see here, and we zoom in closer, the main one has that curb ramp with the tactile indicator. And I'm going to zoom in further to show that. But yet the north and the south one do not. So there is a question as to if those ramps will also have tactile indicators, as they should. And then clarity as well that there is none showing internally, and I would like to see them internally as well. And then the third comment is recommending to add a barrier-free parking space towards units 1 and 14, which would be off to the side here. So unit 1 is this restaurant, and unit 14 is up here in this restaurant. I am requesting that we look at another barrier-free spot on this end of the building because path of travel from this space all the way around, there is no seating on that area. There is that bench way off to the side. On the south side, there is no parking as there is an EV station. So the closest parking to this restaurant on the south side is here on A or B in the main entrance. So they would have to go down and all the way around. So I am requesting the additional 2 spaces to be provided along with the curb cut on the north and south of the building right here in the corner. So we can provide access into these spaces as well. So those are the 3 additional comments and clarifications, if you will, on this site plan. So any comments or additional?
Yeah, does the committee have any questions or comments?
Joanne?
I was just wondering, of course, being the first time I'm sort of seeing this is what I'm understanding. I know one other building that we did once before, we found out the handicap parking was across the driveway and there was trucks that went in between there and the building. Are we running into any problems here with that? I just can't see where you have different angles.
So the barrier-free spaces currently are only on this one side. So I'm going to zoom in even further. So the main entrance is right here in the middle. Mm-hmm. And so there is your type A and type B spots on the north and south side of the ramp with the access aisle here. They have 1 additional type B spot because of the number of spaces. They do require 5. So they put it here on a minimum with the access aisle to come up the ramp, which is good. But those are currently the only 5 spaces that are provided for barrier-free spaces. I am recommending that they have an additional one somewhere in this area, closer to this restaurant, at which point they would have the access aisle that goes across the street onto the curb cut. So they would need that as well.
Well, I noticed that like at the seniors building, for instance, there are 2 ramps that come away from the handicap parking that they're actually in front. One of them is directly in front of the car that parks there, which doesn't do any good at all to the person that's getting out and maybe struggling with a walker or whatever. And the other one's sort of off to the side a little bit, but then the person that gets out of that drives the car in can drive anywhere they want and they can just block it. So it's just those types of things that seem to not. And a lot of the places around I find don't have enough handicap parking. And are all these people meeting the quota that's required?
Yes. Sorry. So yes, at a minimum, they do require to meet the AODA standard. That is also part of our parking bylaw in town as well. So parking for any application does require to meet the minimum. Although they may submit lower, it will get caught in multiple places through the comment process, namely through us, through our bylaw department and through our building department. So there's multiple departments. We do have our AODA standard and a parking bylaw, which are identical above the, and then the building code also includes the AODA standard. So on a minimum, all plans submitted would require to meet that percentage. For our municipal buildings, so you mentioned the senior center, we are going through a parking study this year. And I believe the senior center is one of the lots that will be reviewed, as well as the Stronach Rural Recreation Complex. And then work will be done upon completion of that study, which I will be involved when the work gets commenced, and this committee will also be involved to comment on. We have more flexibility with our municipal parking lots, as they're ours and our decision to make, and we can, you know, upon direction, get that work completed. With private facilities like this one, all we can do is recommend additional spaces.
I know it's not always going to be the case, but the thing is, at this point in time, we also, to me, I know that we've got a lot of young people growing up in the town and everything, but we have a lot of seniors who are quite senior. And we have a lot of seniors' homes that you can see and everything. And there's still those people in those homes are driving places. So the thing is, I sometimes think that they should have a thing about trying to get an increase on some of the places.
Yep. So as a committee, again, we've decided, and this is a good example of that as well. I think we put 100, a number to it for some reason. That number rings a bell. But every plan that I've seen, I've always, especially a layout like this, I've always increased the accessible spaces that we recommend for that reason. It's hard because we do need to balance. We can't make the whole facility barrier free. So there does need to be that balance, depending on if we know the occupants of a certain facility, we can absolutely recommend. I believe the last one was a retirement residence that we added, I think it was 5 or 6 spaces per level, parking level, in that structure. We recommended additional because we knew the purpose of that facility. With the senior center across, I can tell you those spots will change. Mm-hmm. Currently, they are not type A nor type B spots. That was there. The Seniors Association needed more barrier-free spaces, so they were repainted, the lines. Well, so they will be fixed.
I just think as we get older, in the position I'm in myself, and then my oldest child's getting to the point where they're going to be a senior. And, you know, the whole thing is, it just keeps moving in groups. And I just hope that we make enough room for these, of the people that have the problems and can't get around. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I have a question about the curb cuts, and apologies for not knowing exactly what the code is, but we had this come up at my work at our accessibility committee meeting around the tactile features being on the flat top or bottom as a warning that a change in level is coming versus having it actually on the ramped piece, because for somebody using a manual wheelchair like myself, going down or up a ramp and having the tactile is a fall risk. So I just know it came up for us as a conversation. And what I understood was that it should be on the flat top and not on the slope, but I was hoping we could explore that if we don't know the answer.
I'll look into the specific position of those tactile indicators. It looks like it is on the main slope up and not the top slope. The comment you made makes, to be honest, makes sense. I just don't know if the AODA standard has it on the top and the bottom. But we can absolutely add that as a recommendation or a consideration at least, but I will double check the AODA standard after that. And if it is in there, I'll make sure to have it as a requirement. And if it's not, then, which I don't believe it is, then we can put it as a consideration.
Yeah, I think I checked with a friend on the committee. She's quite well versed with it. She's saying it's meant to be on the top. In the city of Toronto, they do it on the slope, but it's incorrect and is a risk. So also it speaks to the knowledge and thoroughness of the folks providing the actual service of installation. Anyway, I digress. You're on.
No, that's fine. I'm just writing it down. You know, you can't see me, but I'm just writing it down.
Are there any other
Any other-
questions or comments? All right, if there's no further questions or comments, then we can vote on carrying this item. All in favor? And any opposed? All right, that carries as well. So we can move on to item 7.2, which is a memo from Accessibility Advisor regarding the 2024 accessibility significant dates. And may I have a mover and seconder to put this item on the floor for discussion. All right, it's Haley and Allison. Greg? All
right. So this is, I just wanted to more so bring it to committee's attention. And I'm not sure if you've seen, but the town has launched a diversity, equity, and inclusion, a DE&I calendar. It's right on our main town's webpage. If you let the banner flip a few times, the calendar will appear there. So what I wanted to do is just extract some of the significant dates that had to do with accessibility that are being recognized on the calendar, more for your information. And then there are two that don't appear on the calendar that we will be having some communication for and doing something for. But I just also wanted to bring that to the attention that although you may not see it, I want to let you know we are doing something about it. So chronologically, just going in order, we have World Down Syndrome Day on March 21st, Purple Day on March 26th, World Autism Awareness Day on April 2nd, National Accessibility Week is May 26th to June 1st, that whole week. Red Shirt Day, which is not on the calendar, it falls during that week on the Wednesday. So that would be May 29th, which we will be celebrating via social media. National Disability Employment Month is throughout the month of October. And we do recognize National Disability Employment Month on October 17th, when we are going to light up the town blue and purple again. This past October, we did the same. We have the lights installed. We will be doing the same recognition this year, which is not on our calendar. And then finally, on December 3rd, we have International Day of Persons with Disability. So as part of the memo, I did extract what though each of those dates are and what we are virtually recognizing. Just to be quick, World Down Syndrome Day is just recognizing public awareness for the effective and meaningful inclusion and participation with all people with Down syndrome. Purple Day is an international grassroots epilepsy awareness initiative, where we ask people to wear purple to promote awareness. World Autism Day, again, is a United Nations. They declared April 2nd to be World Autism Awareness Day, just highlighting to help those with autism improve quality of life and have meaningful lives. National Accessibility Week, of course, celebrating the contributions of Canadians with disabilities and promoting a culture of inclusion to combat discrimination. Red Shirt Day, we do wear red on the Wednesday of Red Shirt Day to support people living with disability and celebrating their achievements. National Disability Employment Month, or NDEEM, as it's referred to, increasing the knowledge and understanding of disability, specifically with employment, promoting disability inclusion in the business and the workplace. And finally, International Day of Persons with Disability, promoted by the United Nations, really promoting an understanding of disability issues and mobilizing that support for dignity, rights, and well-being of individuals. So that, in a nutshell, is the dates that we have set for the year, where I just wanted to bring to your attention. Notes-wise, just bear with me. So these dates are going to be recognized on the town's social media channels, in addition to being listed on the calendar, which we have also shared via media release and to our community. And for some of those dates, as I mentioned, we will just be recognizing via social media. Some of them we will be asking staff to contribute, like Purple Day and Red Shirt Day. We will be asking staff to help celebrate by wearing those respective colors. And then, of course, National Accessibility Week, as we spoke about last week, and we will have another initiative for that week. Most likely on the Wednesday. I'm gonna see if I can do it on the Thursday or Friday instead, because I'm not in town on that Wednesday. So we'll have to plan and see what we're gonna do and what that looks like. But then, of course, on the Wednesday, we're gonna invite staff to wear their red shirts. Again, same thing, photo opportunity. As I mentioned with National Disability Employment Month, we are going to, again, as per last year, light up the town blue and purple. So most of our buildings, Public Library, Aurora Community Center, the Stronach Rec Complex, the Aurora Family Leisure Complex, and here at Town Hall and the Senior Center will all have alternating purple and blue lights to recognize on October 17th. That's is about it on my end.
All right, does the committee have any questions or comments? Yeah, Haley.
Is there a reason why, in terms of the AODA that and these dates that we're not including things around like brain injury, mental health, because those are also all included, from my understanding, under the AODA, but I find are not as supported or talked about.
Sorry, Haley, what was the first one? Mental health and what did you mention?
Things like brain injury, anything like that. Like those are some of the ones that I just often find are less talked about that are covered under AODA, because mental disorders are covered under AODA, brain injury specifically mentioned in AODA, but like those dates are not included. I know there's mental health week is in May, and I know there's a brain injury awareness day as well. I can't think of it off the top of my head.
So I got to double check on mental health. That just may have been, just got to double check if we are recognizing those via the calendar. That may have just been my omission when pulling the dates. May you mentioned, right?
Yes, I believe it's the 13th to the 19th.
So it is not on our calendar. However, I know we do recognize it internally with staff, and we do have initiatives that we are currently working on with our corporate wellness committee that we are looking at internally. In terms of externally on the calendar, I can bring it up to our communications team, as they're the ones that hold this calendar. But I think there's so many different initiatives that are out there, and ability for us to recognize a wide range of disabilities. Like you mentioned, brain injury and that sort of thing. But at some point, the communications team mentioned, we can't do it all. So I questioned why the certain ones were on the list, that are on the list, and it was well, we've always done something about these, and that's kind of why they've just been rolled over. But there is a push moving forward to start reducing the amount of recognized dates that are on the calendar. Because again, if we celebrate one, why aren't we celebrating something else? And that's a line that does get muddy some of the time. So it's kind of like an all or nothing, and the all becomes a lot when we consider every religion, every disability, every festival, every holiday. But the region does do a good job as York Region to celebrate everything.
100%, and maybe that's also something we could consider as a committee on how to bring forward more of, because I think for a lot of people, the ODA, like autism, Down syndrome, the more visible things are recognized as being part of the AODA, and some of the less visible, even that, you could be covered under AODA for having a temporary injury, right? Those are less well-known things, and I think maybe the committee could, if there's a way for us to get that even information out there too, to support those types of things too.
So, sorry, I'm just writing down. So absolutely, Haley, if there are additional dates that we want to recognize, or dates that we want to remove. Again, this is a calendar that communications put out. This is something that they're doing anyways. This doesn't really have anything I might add to some of the events. I will participate in the events, kind of thing. The main two that I'm really focused on as the accessibility advisor would be the initiatives throughout National Accessibility Week, as well as National Disability Employment Month. Those are the two big initiatives that there will be a little bit more that we do beyond a social media recognition post. Beyond that, the rest of the initiatives are with our communications team. So again, being mindful, if there is something else, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there's an invisible disability recognition that we can absolutely put something together for. I would have to find out which date it is. I believe the city of Ottawa recognized it last year, towards the end of the year, I believe. So if that's something the committee wants to recognize, we can absolutely put something together and I can forward it off to our communications team. It won't be part of the calendar necessarily, but it would be something that we can recognize above and beyond what's already out there.
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
I just before Haley started, I had the same thing in mind. Having worked at the Ontario Crippled Children's Centre, as it was called back in the 60s, for many years, and also having worked with the Voices of Joy, we still put on the Voices of Joy letters, which have come before. We still say physically and intellectually challenged. So, or you could, say whatever, whatever, you could find another word. But the thing is, physical and intellectually challenged gives you people that are to have challenged with mental illness as well as the physical illness. And we still put that on everything, and it goes over very well, and it's very accepted. And we used to use the same terminology years ago at Community Living too, and I helped there. But I know it all varies, but I'd like to see that both of them are included in everything.
Look into those invisible disabilities, and I can, for our next meeting, I can look into it and then provide the committee with some of those additional dates and see if we want to recognize them, and if so, what do we want messaging to look like, and then we can always submit that to our communications team to put out on our social channels.
Allison.
I was just going to say the calendar does show that we did the Let's Talk Day, and it does show a World Mental Health Day in October, which is great. And I echo comments that we can, think about language and inclusivity. I do think that's a polarizing topic, and it's very hard to find anything that lands and everyone agrees on, but certainly ways to be inclusive of all, and also question around if not that we need to get into the inertia of their strategy, but where we're not posting or creating content, where we're amplifying organizations that do, partner organizations, and looking to them to just share that content. Curious if the town does that.
So we do, and so in I believe it was beginning of January, mid-January, for example, the region put out a End Hate campaign, and it was a regional initiative, and all municipalities basically took the same message and shared it on their page. So that idea, if it falls around that date, if we are doing something that surrounds that, we will put something out as the town. If we're not going to do a message ourselves and somebody else, an organization or an agency, is celebrating something, we can definitely take that content and share to celebrate. So there are multiple ways that we can recognize and celebrate. It doesn't necessarily always need to be a big event or a panel or a guest speaker or that sort of thing. Sometimes it's just recognizing, like you said, with Bell Let's Talk. We did talk about, again, that was January, so I didn't include that in today's meeting. But we do stuff involved. We didn't share anything of other people's stuff because that was something we did. If we didn't do something, then yeah, absolutely, we would share that recognition from a respective organization or agency. We would just need to know who they are first.
Greg, I wanted to ask, aside from the social media sort of outreach from the town, for any of these dates, are there any, not really testimonials, but interviews or discussions with people in the community who are affected by these disabilities or families of them?
So for the majority of them, I don't believe so. I believe it's just recognizing that date, and communications would have the social media messaging to go out for that. If in National Disability Employment Month, I believe the March of Dimes approached the mayor directly. There was a proclamation this past October, which is why the lights were installed, and therefore we participated with a further media release that went out. So in situations like that, if it does come to the council table and there becomes that, proclamation or messaging that does come out there, or even that direction, that's where staff would then therefore look at something like that. I think that's a great idea for National Accessibility Week, though, to highlight, lived experiences in our community. And as we're celebrating the successes of our Canadians with disabilities, some of the good stories that have come out of Aurora, I think, that idea, I just wrote it down. It's a great idea for the week. So we can celebrate the week as a whole. We can get those testimonials. I'm going to be starting with this group here, so we can get a start, because you've all come from a different perspective and in a different life experience. And it just in the last few weeks, it's just my involvement in different things, being on very different perspectives and different experiences, bring a very different look and feel to a certain project or initiative or a cause. In our case, being a parent, having a child with a disability versus being a parent with a disability, having a child who does not, are very different experiences, very different barriers, and both things that we need to consider as we move forward in our work. So great idea. And I will look to do something like that with National Accessibility Week. So I'll put the call out now, Peter, since you mentioned
Yeah,
it.
no, put me on the
testimonial.
short list. The short list for sure.
By all means, send it to me, and I will work to see how we can work with communications, get it out there. I do have a very powerful story of one of our community members in my previous work life that was very impactful, and I want to reach out to her as well, who has a very good story about how we as a town has changed her life, who has a disability, and how she's a better person because of it. So that actually made the paper. But it's things like that, Peter. I think I think we need to show to our community the good that we're doing, and our experiences, and people with disabilities do exist in our community.
Right. All right. Well, let me know what you need. I'm happy to write something or take a couple of videos or whatever we need for it. I'd be happy to contribute.
I'm going to reach out to communications. I'm going to give them the idea, and I'm going to ask what they need, and then we will. I'll let you know.
Great.
We do have some time, which is good.
Yeah.
May will be here before we know it, but we do have some time, as March is what, almost a week away, or just over a week away rather. So, but I will reach out to communications and I will let you know. Pictures, videos, testimonials, what, where, how, and we'll go from there.
All right. Allison, did you have another?
I just,
comment? Yeah.
it just is my snowball brainstorm. It might be a great way to connect to the actual days too, rather than just it's World Down Syndrome Day, connect the story on that day versus all condensed. National Accessibility Week is great, but that's a lot of content to plug into 1 week. And this might be a great way to have a meet your accessibility committee members if we all chose to participate in this way. And we could potentially self-select which day might be meaningful to us to highlight and amplify that day and connect it back to our community. Just a thought to expand that concept throughout all of the dates through the year and find those human interest stories, which I'm sure we can find one for all the dates we're already celebrating.
I too think that's a great idea, Allison. The more we can have conversations within our community about disability awareness, I feel like the more likely we are to get that extra parking space or two in our site plans and that those elevators being built and that sort of thing.
And my park.
And we will work on that and the parks as well. So so I do think I also wrote that down. So we'll see. Put some mind to it. Maybe this could be a good idea for National Accessibility Week to launch a testimonial series, if you will. So that week can be our first one, which gives us time to prepare and accumulate. So that idea, and then we can look at from May onwards into the following May to do these series. So if it happens to be a January or February date that resonates with you and it's already passed, we can look at 2025 to put that out there, right? So we could still have that testimonial and talk. I'll need to run it by communications first. I think it's a great idea. Let me see their thoughts, and then we can bring it back to hopefully March's meeting, which is in a few short weeks.
The reason I brought up about the physical and intellectual part of it, I actually bumped into a woman who was trying to tell me that the people that were only the handicapped people were the only ones in the wheelchairs. And I said, did she understand what people had and stuff like that? And I was explaining different things. Like in the Voices of Joy, we have one man that's 88 and he's totally blind. We have another fellow in a wheelchair, he's a young man. We have another fellow is intellectually challenged, and then he got hit by a truck on his bicycle and he's lost his leg now. But the thing is, there's so many variants of everything, as everybody was saying. But I think to making it clearer than, just a word or something, just to, you don't have to explain the life away, but just to make it a bit clearer to the public, because they don't seem to, one of the girls I know that's intellectually challenged, and she sings in some of the shows we've done at the theater, but she's worked for the Board of Education for about 18 years now. And another one's working in the Metro and another one at Winners, and they're all in our choir. But the thing is, they're just the people are very good, and they're just, the two of the people that were in the Metro store that are handicapped in a way intellectually, they had to go on strike with the rest of the employees. And so it was a whole new thing for them. But anyway, I just thought to mention that.
The messaging that's out there, it's not just, hey, we're recognizing this day, period, right? There will be some educational piece of what this means, and I did put it in the memo, a little blurb about who's recognizing it, where did this come from, a little bit of the history, and that we recognize. And usually what ends up happening is there is a link or further direction if you want to learn more, or a hashtag that will get you into more information and that sort of thing. So again, what I can control at this point, as I mentioned, was the National Accessibility Week and what we're going to put out there. The National Disability Employment Month. It's going to be rolled over from what we've done last year, just educating the public why most of our buildings are blue and purple on this date, and where that education will then come in for Disability Employment Month. And then beyond that, it's the social media messaging that we will recognize.
I think you're muted, Allison.
Thank you. One last comment, and then I promise I'll end the discussion on this. One thing I think I find that many organizations and towns we're great at talking about disability on these disability awareness months, and then we forget about it on any other day. Like today is Valentine's Day. Great, talk about marriage and equity in disability, right? There's opportunities, I think, and we can challenge our communications team to weave disability into days that aren't about disability, but we exist on every other day. We exist at Thanksgiving, we exist at Rosh Hashanah, we exist at Christmas, making sure that that representation is still there. We don't have to talk about disability, but we still exist as a community at those times too. So I think not looking at it in a silo is important. And we can just challenge them to do that.
Great comment. I did write it down. I am working with communications to along similar lines to try to diversify some of the content that we do put out there as well. Mainly some of the images. So what we may do at some point is reach out to this committee, and we may take some images of what disability in our town looks like, kind of thing. So we can have some more diverse images in our tool bank, if you will, for depending on the dates, how we can use them, reports, that sort of thing. Currently, we don't have any images of people with disabilities in our community, other than the video that the committee put out last term. So I'm trying to kind of build our toolbox, and that'll lead into my next comment for our multi-year accessibility plan update. I'll leave it at that.
Are there any other questions or comments?
There was
Oh,
just,
Judith.
is it on? Okay, can't see it. I just had one thing to say, that the Voices of Joy have performed in this council chamber before. We've also performed for the Blue Jays and sung the national anthems. So anytime any of these events come up, we have a multitude of people, about 30 people from all varying aspects of what we're looking at. That would be more than willing and very appreciative, actually, to come out and perform.
I've written that down as a note.
All right. Any more questions or comments on this item? All right, if there's no further, then we can vote on carrying this item. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, and none opposed. So that carries, which leaves us with our last item for the evening, which is 7.3, the roundtable discussion regarding the Town of Aurora multi-year accessibility plan, 2022 to 2026. And may I have a mover and seconder for this item? Allison and Haley. All right, Craig,
Well-
take it away.
You got some-
I do have two big updates. The one I alluded to earlier was we met with Access Now. I actually met with them earlier today with our parks team, and we have officially launched the project. So our 14 trails and 7 facilities will, the remaining 7 facilities in our inventory will be assessed throughout the year at different stages. A lot of our buildings are still being worked on. So once they open, like Aurora Town Square being the big one, and Victoria Hall just outside of it, is set to have some work done to it. Once that is complete and open, we will have Access Now come in. And then they have commenced with looking into the 14 trails. I believe I checked this morning. We have, if I recall correctly, about 17,000 meters worth of trail throughout Aurora, which our mappers will come through and assess for us. At this point, 2 of our mappers, 2 of their mappers, we're going to try for the same 2 that assessed our facilities. One is out in Ottawa, so we'll have to see if he's available to come back into town. Aaron, who is blind, and Rick, who is in a motorized wheelchair with limited mobility, upper body. Both of them will be hoping to come back to our town. They bring very different perspectives to our spaces. And as part of that meeting, our parks manager, our park supervisor, and our senior landscape architect were all part of the meeting as well, who were very encouraged, excited, and we do have our trail auditor who is going to be coming and joining us through the process as well, along with they may come periodically when they have time, but the 3 individuals I mentioned were also invited. So that's great. So as we talked about images, I really hope that through our trails and our outdoor spaces, we can also bring in our communications team to really take some high quality photos through our spaces and places to help showcase some of our parks some of our trails in our community for our own publishing documents. Not sure if you saw, but in Newmarket, there is the street sign as you're entering into Newmarket from Aurora of, I don't know if it's gone yet or not, but this was a couple months ago I saw it, of the accessible trails for New York region. And then there were 2 individuals walking, one was walking on the trail, one was on the wheelchair. Those were actually regional accessibility advisory committee members. And those pictures were taken in the regional trails. So I'm hoping that we can do very similar work and that process. In saying that, I will give you all a heads up that the invite will also be extended to this committee as well. If you wanted to participate in coming out, spending whatever time you'd like, whether it's an hour or 2, all day, it's up to you, and join us on the mapping. If I'm in town and I'm available, I will be at every single, I will be putting in a lot of steps that month, but I will walk through the path with the mappers. I did our 8 facilities and we spent the 20 hours together. And it was a great experience. If you can only make it for an hour or 2, if you want to wait till we get closer to your house and step outside and come with us, whatever the case might be, the invite is open to you. I did confirm that today. The more the merrier. They did not have a limit on how many were to attend. But I know previously in the summer when Max was still around with us, he did participate in one of our days, and really brought a different perspective. And I think he learned a lot just in that experience. So the invite, when I have more finalized dates, will come be extended to this committee as well. It's up to you. You don't have to join, but it is an opportunity that between Access Now and our teams, if you wanted to, we absolutely would love to have you. Just be known that we are going to be traveling through our trails that we may or may not know what we're encountering. So just be that, give that a heads up. Depending on the weather for the previous few days, that sort of thing, we'll try to pick the good days. I don't think we all want to walk in the rain or muddy. But again, it's a very thorough map of location, terrain, distances, features, signage, anything you can think of along the trail, hazards, they will be noted. And if you do go on Access Now and search their outdoor maps, if you search some of the Richmond Hill trails, I believe Saigon Trail is the closest to us in Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill, then you can see kind of what the mapping looks like on their platform. So it's very cool. It's green, goes to yellow, back to green. It has all the features, inaccessible bench because it was broken, or partially accessible because it doesn't have the handles or the armrests rather, and that sort of thing. So again, we're just going through, just mapping what is there. A report will be given to us at the end of the year, which we'll present to council, or I will be presenting to council along with this committee once that's complete. And it's more of a FYI. And then from our parks team, as they go ahead and start to renovate, retrofit, rebuild, change, modify, this information will kind of be available at their disposal. So if they're going through, they can cut that shrub a little bit shorter, or maybe pave that path a little bit further, or whatever the case is, if it's part of the scope of their work. So that's kind of that project. So I'm looking forward to the rollout of that, which will be throughout the year. The other thing I want to mention is back on January 31st, one of those two dates. I thought it was the 31st on the Monday, Tuesday. We were at council, and council did endorse the town as the first municipality to sign the Dear Everybody commitment from Holland Bloorview. So council unanimously signed and endorsed the commitment through Holland Bloorview, which really puts disability first in everything we do. A commitment to we've been talking about it a little bit, but the images that we put out, the diversity, employment, and an additional resource where we as a organization, as a municipal organization, are putting disability first in what we do. So those are the two big updates since our last meeting.
Craig, should we contact you directly if we're interested in coming along for one of the trail mapping adventures?
So when I have the dates finalized, I will email it to the committee. And then at that point you can, because at this point, for all we know, it might be mid-May before we even start the mapping process. Try to get the spring showers out of the way and some nicer, warmer weather before we start mapping. And we do have a lot of kilometers of trails to get through. So the other good thing about that process, Allison, you mentioned it at the beginning of our talk, so you'll be happy with this. We are going to start prioritizing some of our trails. One of our parks is being set to be renovated, and our parks team has asked for some focus group feedback from Access Now and people with lived experiences specifically, so that they can implement some of that feedback into the pre-design phase of the park as they start looking into it, which is near one of the trails that is being mapped. So top of my head, I can't remember which one it was. But it is near, I believe it's Willow Trail, if I'm not mistaken. And Parks is encouraged to utilize that as a resource to, as we go through the park, to just get some ideas of how we can make path and spaces and travel to these amenities more accessible. So yeah, in short, Peter, I will let you know when I know.
I have a question. Not a question, just a statement. I used to walk 2 hours a day and I can't do that anymore. But if there's anything that day, like a table set up or welcoming people or whatever you do, I don't mind doing anything like that. Anything, if I'm off balance, I'm liable to go. So
we'll have to see. For the most part, the team's quite efficient. It's, hi, how are you? Let's get started. And then we go.
Yeah.
So some of our trails are currently under construction to be open later this year. Some of them are just finishing and wrapping up. Some of them are set to be retrofitted and renovated later this year into next. So we'll have to prioritize that. So that list will be going to Parks to review the list and help us to prioritize which ones we should get done first. And we'll try to get those ones done first. And then we'll progress through the day. If you wanted to, the invite will still stand for our facilities. So Town Square, for example, will be opening. I believe the ribbon cutting is set for September. We'll see when we get the keys and the green lights to actually open what that date is. But at some point when we know for sure we're in that building, we will then go ahead and bring Access Now in to assess. Some of our other facilities are not accessible. And I know that already, but I still want them on the platform just so that we can note for our individuals in our community. For example, if you're in a wheelchair, don't attend this building. We know that. We want to just be very transparent and clear. And then as we progress to renovate those buildings, and some of them are quite old, before renovating, we may just tear it down and build something new instead. So when that time comes, we will bring Access Now back in to reevaluate and renovate. We're hoping that the recreation complex gymnasium project and everything else is completed by year's end. I will then be asking Access Now to just come over and reevaluate with the gymnasium, multipurpose rooms, the universal washroom, and the new recreation, the new customer service desk, to just re-update our verified listing, as it will technically be outdated. So that's the plan for this year.
Allison.
I don't know if this is out of turn and maybe for new business. Will the parks team share with us the feedback they're getting from their town park renovation survey? Like, I know that it's likely we'll see whatever plan they want to move forward with for our feedback, but can we find out what they gathered from their surveys and information sessions?
So I believe the plan is that Parks is planning to come to our March meeting to present those findings and to discuss with this group. So I don't know if we have if this committee did comment on the town park. We at least have that many comments surveyed. But from the last check, there was just a few comments. We did have an open house this past week, last Wednesday, I believe it was. And a handful of local community members did come out from the repairs group to just look at the space, but we only had, I want to say, 6 or 7 individuals that did show up to comment in person for Town Park. So, but yes, the plan is that the manager of Parks and Fleet will be coming to committee for March. It's not finalized, but that's the plan.
Any further questions or comments on that item? Greg, is there more around the roundtable, or were those the updates?
Those are the only two updates for the multi-year accessibility plan at this point.
All right. Well, if there's no further discussion, then we can vote on carrying that item. All in favor?
Aye.
And none opposed, so that carries as well. We have no informational items tonight. Does anyone have any new business to discuss? It's like no new business.
Peter, I do, but just
Oh,
anyone else?
sure. Sorry, couldn't see you. Sorry.
It's okay. Jacqueline muted me. Okay, so just wanted to let you know, I believe today might be the last day. So if you haven't already, the recreational needs assessment for persons with disabilities survey does close. I believe it's today. Last night was our final in-person focus group. No one showed up, despite having a few register. We did have to cancel a few, and all our other focus groups did have one or two that did attend. So just another reminder, if you haven't submitted the online survey, please do to get the feedback. Again, this is for all persons with disabilities, not just children. And it was clear this Sunday in the session. Thank you, Allison, for attending. But it was very clear it was a great conversation with specifically adults with disabilities and not having programs, as we tend to focus on children. And alternatively, the need for clarity, transparency, and information. And Peter, I believe you did mention it's at one of our last meetings as well, same idea. We need to know so that we can make those informed decisions. So a lot of good information. Unfortunately, I had a good chat with our consultants on Tuesday last night. But yeah, I believe the survey does close today. So if you haven't done it, please do. If you know of anyone that lives in Aurora, could benefit or could positively comment, please forward it to them. It's engageaurora.ca/RNA. I believe I saw on social media it closed today or tomorrow. So
What was it again? Sorry.
engageaurora.ca. I can.
The thing is, I don't have it,
Yeah,
so I'm gonna have
so
to get somebody else to do it for me, I
we'll-
think, or something.
I don't know. I'll try to get you a paper copy before you
Thank
leave.
you.
I'll see if I could print it from online.
Thanks.
Otherwise, we'll mail it to you, and then just you can bring it
Or I
back
can
in
pick it
March.
up.
Or you can pick it
Yeah,
up. Sure.
whatever.
But that recreational needs assessment is also, so they're planning to take all the feedback in February, analyze it. They may reach out to interested parties in our community throughout March for additional commentary, put the plan together. So we may see it in April, otherwise in May, a initial draft plan. This is what we heard. This is the direction we're going to take it, and potentially a draft plan. So we will see that upcoming in April, probably May, but depends on kind of how much work and feedback is involved. So that's also something that's upcoming. And I did have something else and it slipped my mind. So I apologize for that.
All right. Any other new business from anyone?
Peter, if you don't mind, I have one item as well.
Sure.
I just wanted to let the committee know that Jeff Preston has resigned from the Accessibility Advisory Committee, so we currently have a vacancy. It's currently posted on aurora.ca/committees, open until February 25th. So I would just encourage everybody to sort of share that information. It's all over social media with posts going out all the way until the 25th, also in some of our print media and our online media and newsletters. So just feel free to share that within your networks, or if there's anybody that you think would be a fantastic asset for the committee, encourage them to apply.
All right, thank you. Any other new business? All right, well, if there's no further new business, then may I have a motion to adjourn for the evening. Moved by, I think they were both at the same time. Haley, seconded by Allison. And all in favor? All right, that carries as well.